Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life on Hard Mode with Pratik Karki. So, this week's episode is going to be based on thankfulness because it is Thanksgiving Day. And fun fact, I was born on Thanksgiving Day. So, it is an opportunity for me to express gratitude and thankfulness to people in my life. And I wanted to also take this opportunity to talk a little bit more about me, my background, where I'm from, and how I got here. It's not all simple. There's a lot of ups and downs along the way, and I'd really like to have a candid conversation. So, no scripts, nothing at all. And let's just get into it. And thank you to everybody who wished me a happy birthday. I really appreciate it. So, welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. This is a very special episode for me because yesterday was Thanksgiving, today's my birthday, and I really enjoy providing gratitude to everyone and everything in my life. And I'm very thankful for you, first of all, for joining this show and giving me feedback and asking me questions. If you're new here, I'm Pratik Karki, and I'm going to go more into my background, but I am a Nepali person who is the co-founder of Anthramind, a post-training data company for AI systems based in San Francisco. And I have a lot of great insights to share. I really love reading, avid gamer, get more into that. But if you're new here, hello, and hope you end up subscribing and listening to me every week talk about various LLM research areas or the tech industry in general. And thank you again. So the plan for today, we're going to do a bit of Friday positivity. And in that, I'm going to share what I'm thankful for this year, the topic of this week, which is looking back at my life and looking ahead for the future. And finally, we end in my favorite segment, which is what have I been reading, watching, and playing. Today's Friday positivity are the top things I'm thankful for this year. So number one is obviously going to be family. I'm eternally thankful to my wife and for my family for supporting me through this process of, having a startup, having a lot of ambiguity. It's a risky thing, a startup, right? You have to work a lot, so you need a lot of support. And it's a very lonely road as well on top of that. So I'm eternally thankful to my wife and family for all of the support. I'm really thankful for my co-founder at Anthramind and my team at Anthramind. They've been amazing. We do a lot of amazing work together. And, it is ambiguous. And we have to take a lot of leaps and experiments and reach out to folks we never even thought would respond to us, right? So it's been a journey and a half, and I'm very thankful for where we are so far. I'm thankful for all of my mentors, my friends from college. You know who you are. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm thankful for you for tuning into this podcast and helping me get better at it every week. Selfishly, I'm thankful for the great weather of California, right? It's T-shirt weather here still, and it's like almost December, so I'm eternally thankful for that. I'm like a brown guy, I love the sun, so I'm really thankful for that. And finally, in broad sense, I'm super thankful for the life that I get to live every day. Like, I wake up very thankful that I have the life that I have, and I'm able to do the things that I get to do because I get opportunities laid by folks like my family or my friends and supported all the way. So I'm eternally thankful for all of that. So thank you, everybody, for giving me the best possible life that I could have. I really appreciate it. So topic of the week. This is something that I'm kind of interested in talking about like how I grew up in Nepal, what a move to the US was like, working in big tech, and now having a startup. So join me today as we'll talk about what led me here and what's in store for the future. I'm very excited to talk about it. This is going to be personal. And, no filters, right? I'm not going to embellish anything, right? I did not grow up I did not have crazy streak of success, and I still think I could do better in so many things. So it's a reflection and a way of looking back and being like, how could I have done things better, or things were really good and I did not appreciate it at the time. So it's sort of looking at things at both ends. So that's what I'm trying to do over here. So let's first talk about my roots. I'm from Nepal, and a lot of you are listening to this are also probably from Nepal, so this is going to be very redundant. But if you are not familiar with Nepal, and you should be watching the video because I really show a lot of visuals and everything, and especially over the next few episodes where we're going to talk about research papers and what's going on in the post-training space. Would really appreciate it if you tuned in and watched the video. So I grew up in Kathmandu, Nepal, but my family's from Viratnagar. So, I went to school, everything Kathmandu, like I think 9 to 10 months out of the year. I'd be in school in Kathmandu, and over the winter months we'd go to Viratnagar. So Kathmandu is in like the central part of Nepal, if you can see in this map over here, and it's in the hills, right? It's not like high up in the mountains, so it's in the foothills of the Himalayas, so still pretty high altitude. But Viratnagar is in the plains, and it is very, very flat. Like it's only 200 meters above sea level, very flat. So it's nice and warm all the year and all throughout the year. And, especially in the winter, it's amazing because you don't have any cold at all. It's very nice and warm. My family is from the eastern part of Nepal. So, we've been in Viratnagar for like a couple of generations, but they moved down from up above from a village in the place called Bhojpur, which is in like the far east up in the mountains. I've been there like a couple of times. You have to trek all the way up there. There's no like cars that get you over there. So it's a very fun trip there, but it's also very remote and rural. So I grew up in Kathmandu. Over here you see a picture of what Kathmandu looks like. You got the amazing history with the Malla dynasty, Lichavi dynasty. These were the kings of the past, and you get to see the mountains behind you. So it's like an amazing place, right? A valley where you can see the mountains of the Himalayas right behind you. And that's Kathmandu. And Viratnagar is like also amazing. It's more metropolitan now. When I was growing up, it was, it is a decently big city, but I wouldn't say it was like as modernized as it is right now. Right now, it's like a whole other place. It's like a massive, nice city and like a decent metropolitan hub. It's also very close to the India border, so did a lot of we used to do a lot of shopping, just going across the border and stuff. So I grew up here, did all my schooling in Kathmandu, and when I was 16, I went to high school at Radha Bangla School, which is like, in my opinion, the best school in Nepal. And I'm very thankful I got there because, scholarships, everything. So that's what made it possible for me. And so that is like sort of like my geographical sense where I was. As a kid, emotionally, or in terms of like my own interests, I had a lot of different interests. And I was very keen on like pursuing all of them. My number one interest and my number one passion still are books. I read a lot. When I was a kid, my dad used to take us to a library called A1, which was at the time the best library in Nepal, because it was run with such amazing books from all sorts of backgrounds, right? You had books obviously for kids, you had adventure books, you had, adult books, in terms of like professional stuff. Like I remember reading Aims of an Argument over there when I was like 10, right? And I understood like what it means to actually build a good argument and how to separate the person from argument. That is one of the things. And there are like so many other books from like very diverse sections, right? Like Anna Karenina or Pride and Prejudice. I remember that we had like a limit for like 25 or 30 books per week. So, we'd go every Saturday, grab as me and my brother with my dad, and grab as many books as possible, right? Like 25, 30, check them out and destroy them during the week, right? Like just read nonstop, and next Saturday you're back at it with like 25 to 30 more books. So it was a really fun time. I really appreciate my dad for taking us to the library all those years and, helping us develop a passion for reading. And unfortunately, the library is no more. Apparently they moved and the new location is not too friendly to sit down. It's more like a warehouse rather than like a library where you can spend hours and hours of your time, right? My other passion was video games. We did not have never had like a console or anything, so it was like a very old PC, and in that only games that ran were, in mid 2000s we were running games from like early 1990s, like Donkey Kong Country, Mega Man X, Chrono Trigger, all of those things. So it definitely was more like a retro vibe even at that point. Right now it's like ancient tech, right? Like Donkey Kong Country came out in like 1994, for example. And one game that I really loved was Age of Empires 2. I still play it. I still have it on my Steam library. It's an amazing strategy game. And it gave me a lot of insight into history, right? Because you could play campaigns like Joan of Arc or Barbarossa from the Holy Roman Empire, or Saladin from the Crusades. And I learned a lot of history then, right? Because I had no other exposure to it. And the game itself was like so intuitive. Like even like an 8-year-old guy like me could learn how to command troops and outflank the enemy. So Age of Empires was my jam. I still play it today. Then I also liked creating games. So, there's a tool called Game Maker 7. Would spend a lot of time building something. Like I built a platformer game. I had like this airplane game and, in the 2D environment, and somehow the airplane could go between levels. And it is very interesting to build, and I had no idea about like programming or something, but it's more like the way you think about it is like how things would move in a loop, right? So that really helped me understand for loops down the line, and algorithmically how to program stuff so that it follows a sequence of events, and you are keeping in check like all of the base conditions and the branching pathways. So those are my childhood passions. And, I carried them for a while, right? Continued adding to a lot of what I learned. Like I continued reading into my teens and everything. And and a lot of people can relate to this, but, when I graduated high school in 2015, that's the same year that the earthquake happened in Nepal. So if you're unaware about this, right, it happened on a Saturday afternoon. 1,000 people died that year from the earthquake. And it's a very fortunate thing that it happened on a Saturday afternoon and not like at nighttime or during school day, because I think the death toll would have been like at least 10 times or 20 times as much. But in the wake of that earthquake, what happened is all of the regions around the epicenter, most of the schools were like completely destroyed. In Nepal, they don't build a lot of schools from, concrete or durable material, right? They're built out of like stone, some places even out of mud. So it was a really terrible situation. And so I decided to take a gap year there because it is something that, affected a lot of people I knew personally, and I wanted to, help out. So I spent a year working with like an NGO, going to the most rural parts that are the most affected by the earthquakes, distributing materials, teaching supplies, even like doing teacher training courses on how to, essentially go on and do most with the least amount of resources that you had. And it is a really enlightening year, right? I really put in the groundwork. There was no like monetary reward or something. It was like more about like, how can I go and understand what's happening and change my perspective quite a bit. So it was a great year. I mean, not great in terms of earthquake, but it was something that I think everybody should do, which is that instead of being disassociated with the rest of the world, you need to pop your bubble and go outside quite a bit. So 2015 to 2016 was a great year for myself personally, because I was able to go out there, spend a lot of time actually doing a lot of grunt work. There's a lot of times I stayed in like these villages for like months at a time and did a lot of work on the ground there. So I really appreciate it. And I think everybody should take an opportunity to do something like that for themselves as well. 2016, that's when I went to the US, full ride scholarship at Grinnell College. So if you can see on the map, you are taking a trip all the way from Nepal, which is, in South Asia, all the way to the middle of the US. Grinnell is in Iowa, US. So, big trip for me. Got the one-way ticket, got my F1 visa, and then I was off, right? I didn't really have much planned or in terms of like, how to do things. I really want to go to college in the US. I think I wanted to be independent. I wanted to build my own character, and I wanted to explore things, right? And experiment and figure out like what is best for me in terms of my personality and career. So in Grinnell, the first semester, I took Intro to Computer Science. I didn't even know anything about it, right? I never like programmed in my life. And a lot of the things clicked very immediately for me, like, recursive programming. We only did like Lisp based programming language called Scheme, and that is like a functional programming language. And a lot of the things from that really clicked for me very quickly. Like instead of just like a standard for loop on Java, you are building recursive base cases. And, I had like a pretty strong math background and everything, but it really clicked for me in a way that is very tangible and applied. And I really enjoyed it, right? You could use a functional programming language like Scheme and build amazing graphics and, create recursive trees. I ended up creating like a project at the end of my first semester that essentially simulated the universe from zero to death through like a magic black hole, and that is also like a recursive programming language. And I think the code was like at maybe like 100 to 200 lines of code at most, and it is amazing that you're able to do that with so little. And after that point, right, I was really into CS. I was double majoring in economics. I enjoyed economics as well. But at a certain point, I had to make a decision because it was like either do computer science and economics or double down on CS. And I was like 2 classes away from majoring in economics, but I was like, okay, I really enjoy CS more. I want to do a master's in CS. And that's exactly what happened. I graduated in 2020, and that was like right at the pandemic, so it ended up being a good choice because I ended up doing like a professional master's at Iowa, where I was doing advanced machine learning, high process computing, and even cloud computing and VR gaming development for UX research. It is very, very interesting. Got a lot of like hands-on work done over there, and I really enjoyed it. It was during COVID time, everything was remote, but at the same time, like the professors were so accommodating. And there was like a genuine sense of curiosity for most of the classes. So I really learned a lot, right? All of the foundational stuff that I learned at Grinnell, I was able to take that and be very applied with what I did. And, whether that is in advanced machine learning, right? That's when I created that's where I created like my own like algorithms and benchmarking data and all of that. So it is like my very first foray into what it is like, doing gradient descent and all of these things. And midway through my master's, I got a job offer at Google. I was applying for jobs. I made like a very long post about it, and my last week's episode of the podcast goes very deep into what it's like actually getting a job offer at Google, like how many places you have to apply for, how to build the perfect resume, all of that. So check that out if you have not. But I applied to this program at Google called Cloud Technical Residency. Very competitive. What they do is like it's like taking early career folks, like fresh grads, and putting them into a career into cloud forward deployed engineering with like a very quick bootcamp. So taking people that both are like technically smart and are able to communicate stuff really well. And very early on, you're like, okay, we'll give you 3 months of training. You're technically adept, and you can also communicate really well. Go in front of executives and bring them bring them a lot of knowledge about cloud technologies and really sell them on it, and be like this forward deployed engineer / consultant. It is an amazing opportunity, so I took it obviously and worked there, did my boot camp, all of that. It was like pretty intense but amazing as well because learned so much so quickly. I did like a bunch of certifications quickly as possible. I was doing like side projects like crazy. Then I moved to San Francisco, and that is where we did a lot of crazy work. Work with like LLM giants, like all the big named ones. Led a lot of like Gen AI projects, advanced machine learning projects, data projects, and did some amazing work with other folks over there. And I really enjoyed it. So 3 years at Google, it was a great time. At the same time, right, I wanted to start my own company. It's something I wanted to do for a very long time. And 3 years of work experience was good. At the same time, right, I did not get my H-1B. Like 4 tries, didn't get it. Just bad luck. And I was like, okay, you know what? There are options. I can, go to Canada and work at Google, or there are a lot of options to stay at the company or work a similar job. But I was like, you know what? Let's try starting a company, because why not? Now's a good time to, go all in and, ride the AI hype train. So I made the leap, founded Anthromind. I met my co-founder at a Y Combinator event in San Francisco. And she was also working in the post-training space, and there was a lot of synergy. And I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to work on. So I was like, I'm in, filed for my O1 visa and got that, and I was off to the races, right? We got like our first venture capital check later that year, and we already had like a few customers. So that is at the end of 2024. 2025, just been expanding like crazy. There's some amazing developments coming, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. But before that, alongside working at Google, I was also building a life, right? I got married, adopted 2 cats. They're very cute. If you're not watching this on video, you're missing out because my cats are very cute. And I had like an amazing wedding ceremony as well. Really enjoyed it. All of my friends were there, family, right? It was an amazing time. So it's not like I was just working. I was simultaneously, building a life, working on myself, taking care of myself, and not just focusing solely on career, because there's so many things in life, right? You want to be physically fit, you want to be emotionally fit, you want to have the social presence and social capabilities to make friends, family, get married, all of that. You want to have like a lot of meaning and purpose to your life. And I think that's what really matters, aside from just working a career and like climbing up the ladder and gaining fame, notoriety, whatever. So I put my career second over my own life, right, over my family, because family comes first. I think everybody should take their family not for granted and should care more about that. That's my opinion. So moving on to being like a true founder, right? Anthromind was something that I'm so excited. I was so excited when it started, because I was like, this is amazing. It is revolutionary. That obviously ChatGPT is revolutionary, but what is more revolutionary is that every single enterprise, or eventually every single human that are trying to use a base model LLM, like a pre-trained LLM, it could be even like a more, industry specific LLM, will need amazing post-training data, post-training pipelines, evaluation data sets, human data, and that's what the Anthromind data platform does. So with our first few customers, we were building post-training data for them out of scratch, so their results were so optimized based on, using foundational like models like DeepSeek R1 or GPT 4.5 or Claude, Sonnet, and using post-training data pipelines, so much improved results. And what's crazy is like when we started in 2024, there was not that much knowledge about evals and synthetic data or human data. In fact, everybody was like, oh, the AI models are going to get better. But now the research has come out, and even the industry is more knowledgeable about the fact that post-training data is where it's at. And you start with evals, you build better post-training pipelines, you get human data of the highest quality, right? We do PhD experts only, or like some crazy smart folks from like, great universities, and they do human data. And that's what has led to like amazing results for companies that we work with, like healthcare companies, frontier tech companies like Deep Cochito. We're working with media, IP, fintech, edtech, you name it. So the company has really scaled, and in an amazing way. So I can't wait to share what else is new. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline, but here's the main vision, right? So the vision for Anthromind is, to put it simply, solve post-training data problems across all industries. And why we're doing that is that there's a lot of like cross-referential learning, right? We're building classification algorithms for healthcare companies in the Bay Area. And a lot of I wouldn't say the exact techniques crossover over there, but there's enough information and enough know-how that classification problems in fintech, like fraud detection, are built off of those base algorithms, obviously with more work put in. So we're able to align models at scale. So we have customers as small as like small startups to Fortune 500s, and we're able to do it at any scale, right? We're already working with large enterprise customers. I already mentioned quite a few. They're in healthcare, fintech, edtech, insurance, media, and IP. And we are getting more customers and scaling. And we truly believe that we're still at the beginning of what is possible. AI adoption is actually still pretty low, right? It's very skewed in San Francisco area because everybody is using it like crazy, but legacy systems or, healthcare companies in like, let's say, Michigan, they are still, only it's at the tip of the iceberg for what is possible. So what has been amazing is being in San Francisco and solving the hardest problems in AI. That is where we're at. The vision is very broad. The vision is we align models for like the best companies in the world, solve the hardest problems. Eventually, when Elon Musk is taking folks to Mars, right? The AI that is guiding those rockets, guess what? Anthemind will be the company to align them. That is like the moonshot that we're working for. No pun intended. That being said, there's quite a few things in the pipeline and all of that. I will say this, based on the evaluation work we're doing, we're actually launching an evaluation platform that anybody can use. So if you're unhappy with your ChatGPT results and you want better results, stay tuned. I will post this on my Substack, LinkedIn, and X, but it's going to be a platform for anybody to quickly identify issues with the models they're using. Obviously, no login, nothing needed. Free to use platform where you can upload responses that you get, build your own evaluations, build your own guardrails, bring your own test data, bring your own models, and evaluate them at zero cost or very low cost. And I'm going to be launching that very soon, so keep an eye out for that. I'm very excited to talk more about it, but we're still working on it. And finally, my favorite section, which is what have I been reading, watching, / playing. So this last weekend, I started Clear Obscure Expedition 33. This is a game that came out this year. It is an amazing story. Ex-Ubisoft guy hated working at Ubisoft because of, they have like some terrible policies. Now all of the games are shit because the writers are like terrible. They're like laying off people like crazy and, doing some, shenanigans, improper management, all of that stuff. And so this guy in France made like a small team of 25 people and they released this game earlier this year out of nowhere. And what's crazy is this game is like insane in terms of graphics, in terms of fidelity. The story is amazing. The music is like out of this world. And it is shocking how a small team of folks with not that much backing behind them could build something that is outdoing games from like large companies that have like tens of thousands of people working on a single game at a time, right? And they're spending like hundreds of millions of dollars on this game. And this one came out earlier this year. All of a sudden became like a universal classic immediately and is one of the highest rated games of all time and became like a massive hit. So it is amazing just playing the game without taking the story into account, like of the story behind the development of it. But also when you take everything into account, it makes it that much better. So without spoiling it, Expedition 33 is something that I think if you have any inclination to play a game and want to get into gaming, I would say play this because it's an amazing story. It talks about like, grief and mortality and, the power of friendship. It is amazing. I would recommend everybody to play this game. I think it is my favorite game of the year so far. All right. Thank you, folks. It was a great episode. As I said, no filter, no script. I just like talking from the heart when it comes to these things. Please remember to subscribe at pratikkarki.substack.com. And you can message me directly on LinkedIn, X, or Substack chat. And thank you all. Hope you had a very blessed Thanksgiving and looking forward to talking next week. I'm going to talk about some exciting stuff. Thank you all.